Well, hi there, it's Polly here, coming to you from the ruins of a 13th century temple in Sukhothai in northern Thailand, with me, a compadre, Mimi. And yeah, so we are going to be looking at one of my old favourites, one of the oldest role-playing games, Tunnels and Trolls. Now, there's a new edition come out, Tunnels and Trolls Deluxe. It's excellent. I haven't brought it on my travels because it's like monstrous, but I have brought what Tunnels and Trolls is most famous for, a ton of its solo adventures. This game excels as a solo game, which I've been playing quite happily on all of the flights and so on. So, Tunnels and Trolls is actually one of the very earliest role-playing games. At a time when polyhedral dice were hard to come by, the Tunnels and Trolls designers decided to go for something that ran entirely off D6. So they wanted something that was more accessible. They didn't want anything that was where it would be of limited availability, equipment and so on. Very hard to get hold of those polyhedral dice. They've used a 3d6 system for characteristics. However, unlike Dungeons and Dragons, your characteristics are not set. In this game, as you gain experience, your characteristics increase. There's no magical kind of hit points that increase. So you get tougher, you get smarter. That's what your experience goes to. So you get harder to kill because your constitution went up, etc., etc. Now, the core systems. For combat, what happens is you roll a number of dice. Your weapon choice gives you a set number of dice that weapon does, and there's a huge, wonderful set of menus of weapons that you can get. You are limited to what weapons you can use effectively by your strength and your dexterity. So there is a lot of fun to looking around and finding what's basically going to give you the best combo. Armor absorbs damage, shields absorb damage. Some shields also act as a weapon, so they add a couple of dice to your combat if you've got the correct skill. So what we do is any characteristic that has a value higher than 12, that number in excess of 12, if it is, I think it's strength, luck, and dexterity, possibly speed, that adds to the result of your dice. So if you've got a 14 strength, you'll add +2 to your overall effect. Those are your adds, which you gather up. The adds are the same whether it's melee or missile fire. It used to be different, now they are the same. Monsters either are done as characters and roll exactly the same way. Dice for weapons plus adds for their strength and so on. Or there's a simplified system which is called monster rating, where for every 10 points of monster rating, which is every 10 hit points it has, it's rolling a dice. And as you do damage, it whittles off the total. The number of dice it rolls, however, remain the same. It doesn't go down as the damage goes down. So 2 sets of monster creation there. Detailed if you want a more detailed character, or hey, this is just a random encounter I want to throw out there. Now, there were some complaints initially amongst various pundits that combats, therefore, didn't have all of the depth that D&D ones had. Because poison and so on, if something was poisonous, you added more dice and so on. This isn't actually true. Once you do the character style monsters, of course, they've got different weapons, different usages. They can have poisons, they can have spells, they can have all that stuff. So it's all there. The combat's a very simple system. I like it, actually. It used to be difficult sometimes to get a win. You could have a look at things and say, oh, this thing's just going to beat the snot out of me. What they have in the current version is a cool thing called Grudge Damage. Every damage dice that you roll that scores a 6 ignores the other guy's armor and ignores any protection he's got and will do damage to him. So normally each character in a fight rolls their dice. Whoever has the highest score, you subtract the lower. The remainder is what the character who rolled the lowest score will take in damage. Subtract your armor, and that's the result that comes off your constitution. Constitution hits 0, hit it. Grudge damage, both sides can do grudge damage to each other. So the idea is you're actually wearing each other down and exhausting each other and so on, which is good, because sometimes someone could be quite heavily armored which means you might not be landing any, you'll not land enough damage to penetrate the armor time and time again, but you will peck them down. So it's a nice, simple, clean system. Now, the other core system in this game are the saving throws. Saving throws come on a level of difficulty. What you do is, for a level 1 saving throw, you take 20 and you subtract your characteristic. So if you've got a 12 strength, 20 minus 12, 8. You have to roll an 8 or higher on 2 6-sided dice to pass a saving throw. You add 5 for each extra level, so a level 2 saving throw is 25, etc. So as you get higher, you're going to have to be an experienced character to be able to pass, because those ones are going to be ones that you've had to actually build your characteristic way up. Characteristics can go way up, by the way. They can be 20, 30, whatever. Now, in both rolling up your character on 3d6 and making saving throws, there is a rule that if you get triples when you're rolling 3 6-sided dice, or doubles, it's Turo and Duro. Basically, doubles roll again. You keep them and roll. So if I roll 2 dice and get 2 2s, it's 4. I keep that score and I roll and I keep going. So, and you can keep going if it's doubles again, so you can get these massive wins if you want. So it is possible to, like if you needed to roll a 14 on 2d6, it can be done if you get the doubles. You keep rolling even if it was an easy pass, because the margin by which you beat the minimum is all experience points for you. So, great rolls are still worth celebrating. So look, that very simply is the core of the game. The purpose of this one was to have fun, as much fun as possible. So it's a very loose system. It's explainable in seconds. I've just told you the whole game. It's got a beautiful magic system, absolutely beautiful system. It's got spells that cost you mana points to cast, or magic points. Magic is a characteristic, so it subtracts off that. You can be a fighter character who can't cast magic. You can be a wizard character that specializes in casting magic. You can be a rogue character who are people who can do both, fight and do a bit of magic. As the wizards go up in level, the casting cost for spells becomes lower for them. They can also do things like make wands and staves, which again lower the cost. So the wizards start being able to throw out a lot more crap into the air. They get to do a ton more. But they don't overbalance the fighters in this game. It's very, very balanced, and you can have absolute fun playing both. And the rogues that can do both are also fun. When rogues get to a certain amount of experience, they can make a choice. They can then kind of start specializing as wizards or specializing as fighters, or they can stay half and half doing both, which is great. So what is it about the new deluxe version that's different? Lots of fixes for niggly little things that obviously house rules came out over the decades. So what they've done is they've told you what the old rule was in some cases and where there were problems, like the fact that those combats could go on and you weren't doing enough damage. Here's the fix: grudge damage. They put it in, and then they'll have a sidebar explaining some variants you might personally want to try. Sometimes they suggest no, sometimes they say, we found this works well in our group. You can be all sorts of different races as you create characters. These actually have multiples of the rolled characteristic as their characteristic. So like a dwarf gets strength is doubled and so on. This can put a bit of an advantage on some things like dwarves or whatever, but other things like elves and so on, you have a look at it and it's like, oh, well, these guys are fairly charismatic, but the constitution's a bit down because they're sort of thin and willowy, so it balances out quite well. Humans, one of the rules that they suggest is that the humans will get a reroll on saving throws once in a session, which works very well indeed. Now, The other thing that they fixed, original Tunnels and Trolls, they had this masses of weapons to choose from, and the last thing you were going to use was a broadsword or an axe, because you'd go through it and you would find some strange Malayan or Khmer or, you know, Sudanese weapon, which it's not giving me 4 dice, it's giving me 4 dice plus 2. I'm winning by plus 2. So no one strode into battle with, like, your Viking shield and an axe. What have you got? I'm using a Shotel and I'm using a Halliday. Oh, God, Umpire immediately opens Stone's Guide to Weaponry to try and figure out what the hell you're doing. Now, all of that wonderful wacky stuff is still in here. However, it's been divided into, these really come into like a medium-sized axe style weapon, a medium-sized pick style weapon, a short bladed short sword style weapon, and so on. However, shopping for weapons is still great fun because there are so many variants and you're looking for the perfect match for your dexterity and your strength. The other great thing is seeing all the greats who contributed to this. So Liz Danforth's artwork is all there through the new edition, and she was always just a delight. Her artwork was some of the formative material for early role-playing games, and it's just so wonderful to see her artwork. They've kept the spirit of the old game, but they have just it's the rules that we kind of grew up and sometimes were irritated, you know, by. But I think these new fixes and these new options have actually really given this game a lot more oomph. I think it's very, very playable. We've been playing it and it's been great. Where this game excels is solo adventures. It was always made with an idea of playing something solo, and they brought out a terrific group of this. I've just got this one here, City of Terrors, which I'm going to play because I think that's a Guinness Book record thing. I am going to play an actual role-playing game in the middle of 13th century ruins. Quick, yeah, someone phone Guinness. So, and all of these adventures are available. You can get all of this stuff on drive-through, or just look up Flying Buffalo, which is their company, or Tunnels and Trolls, and you can find a link to get their hard copies of all of these. These are well worthwhile. These I enjoyed these as a kid. I've been playing them, you know, on airplanes and so on here, and I'm still loving it to bits. So, look, Tunnels and Trolls. I don't think it never got the fame of Dungeons and Dragons, obviously. However, it's a game that's always had good bones. I think what its core was, it wanted to be simple so that the fun went into the role play and not niggling over minor rules points and 1,001 different variants and saving throws and all these sorts of things. It kept its magic system clever and simple with a great selection of spells. Take that, you fiend, is still one of my favourite spell names ever. The combat system meant that wizard characters didn't suddenly outstrip fighter characters, so that it wasn't really, you know, we're wandering along and suddenly, oh, we're really just a cheer squad for the guy who throws the spells. And it's just so playable. There's rules in here for playing monsters of all kinds. They've kind of rolled monsters over into the deluxe rules. The deluxe rules come with some solo adventures already in them, including one of my favourites, The Abyss, which was a adventure in hell. So it was designed that if your character died, you could play an adventure in hell and try and get it back again. So that's actually in there. It comes with a whole bunch of GM run adventures as well, so you can get in there and play. I think this deluxe version, absolutely worth getting. A must-for collection, and surprisingly playable. It really is. It's such a fun thing to just leap in there and play. So anyway, here we are in Crazy Town. Kind of celebrating the incredibly wacky weapons that we always did. Schnoots and I are now actually going to, you know, sit here and start playing. So, yep, we are going to do that amazing moment, and play City of Terrors. Yay! All right, Schnoots. Anyway, so Schnoots. So 200 yards from the gate. You listening? Okay. Which one are you playing? You're playing the fairy character. Alright, he wants the fairy because he saw Roger Dean and the elephants with the wings. He's been obsessed ever since. So, anyway, we'll get playing, and you guys check the game out. And if you like the videos, subscribe. Whee! Cheers.